Oh, hello, yeah. Well, good grief. It is the Labour Party conference. Yes, you'll thrill. You'll swoon. You'll not bother much with it. Yes. Whilst the real world goes on outside, we will have a very, very, very carefully stage managed approach indoors. Outdoors, people will be arrested for holding signs, but I don't know. That's just a juxtaposition I don't think we need to worry about right now. Except, of course, we really do need to, don't we? Anyway, The Guardian yesterday had, an in-depth interview with the new Foreign Secretary, Ms. Cooper, which was, I don't know, it's one of those sorts of things you can read, link down below inevitably, that you think to yourself, they must have spent about 3 minutes in the room with her. Anyway, Yvette Cooper suggests international community on brink of Gaza peace deal. Yes. Exclusive. Exclusive. Foreign Secretary says the world has reached moment. It wants to end war after Donald Trump signals plan within reach. And yes, anyway, she goes on to say about how really dreadful it is that people are dying. It's very, very awful, and the children are dreadful and awful. And about that's it, really. Yes, you get a flavour of it by the fact that most other Guardian articles will allow you to make comments, but you're not allowed to comment on this one. Girl surprise. Anyway, the meat is actually at the bottom, and it's worthwhile just reading the bottom bit before she drifts off into discussing briefly about how bad Putin is. But anyway, the UK Foreign Office makes regular internal assessments of whether there is a serious risk of genocide by Israel in Gaza, but earlier this month said it had not concluded that it was currently the case. Every time we talk about whether it's humanitarian crisis or whatever words that we actually feel that we use actually feel hollow, because what it's really about is the screams and pains of a toddler, and that's what really is at the heart of this, and that's what has to end. The war has to be brought to an end, Cooper said. I think the reason there's such a sense of distress is because everyone can see the horror of what's happened and feels that it's like nothing's being done. It feels like nothing's changes. It feels like everything is just getting worse. The challenge for us now is that there is a moment, and we have to make sure that that moment, through international action, is turned into a peace process. Yes, so there you go. It's very, very bad. Definitely not a genocide. Really looks like a genocide. And, I think the vast majority of people from across the political spectrum would say, gosh, that really looks like a genocide, even though it might not technically be a genocide, which is kind of convenient if you think about it. Reminds one of other sorts of advice on foreign policy issues that the Labour Party has been given. But throughout this piece in The Guardian, there's no talk about the British government actually doing anything. She's saying, isn't it dreadful? It looks dreadful. It's appalling, isn't it? All children, all toddlers, nothing. Right? There are loads of things the British government could do, which we well know that they could do in terms of putting pressure on Israel. I mean, I'm not just sort of talking about recognising Palestine, because that's a bit of an empty thing. We could stop giving material assistance to the Israeli state. We could stop sending flights from Cyprus to collect information for the Israelis. We could stop supplying parts to Israeli jets which kill people. We could stop training Israeli officers in this country and Israeli squaddies who will go out, some of them British citizens, let's face it, as members of the IDF, and go and kill people, which may or may not be a war crime. Might come back to that in a few years' time, which would be very embarrassing for certain people. But there's no sense of any action here whatsoever, other than, the adults, the very important people are getting on with it, like Tony Blair. You see, from someone with my sensibility, that old sort of lefty, let's look at imperialism sort of thing that you get from people like me, what this looks like is a whole bunch of very, very wealthy, unelected people like Tony Blair. Let's not forget that, okay? Yes, he was Prime Minister, but no one's voted for him to become the new King of Gaza, yeah? In a kind of 1938 sort of, we'll send a man out there that's used to dealing with the colonials. Yes, because of course we can make lines on the sand, can't we? Because it's worked out so well for the last 200 years in what we might call Palestine or Transjordan or whatever other phrases you want to use, which are still reasonably applicable now in terms of lines on maps with problems attached to them. But like I say, astounding that a new foreign secretary, new broom, new ideas. What are we going to do? We'll just be very quiet and stand next to Donald Trump and nod at the right time. Yes, well done. And they wonder They wonder why people like me hold them in contempt, and then they wonder why people that aren't like me hold them in contempt. Well, because metaphorically or otherwise, I am sat with the people outside holding the signs. You know, the ones that are actually concerned and actually doing something. The British government could do a lot. They could suggest, for example, bearing in mind that there's an international court order out, that they'll actually arrest certain senior Israelis if they come to this country. But they don't. They invite them to number 10 for chats. Anyway, you can make of that what you will. You might well be supportive of the Israeli state, although most people, it seems in my comments that are supportive of the Israeli state, are basically supportive of the Israeli state because they're not a certain religious area, a state in the area, which is something else entirely. Still, never mind, hey? Yeah, never mind. It's just one of those things that when you read about it in the history books, it'll be up there with Armenia and various other sort of reasonably low-scale genocides. And by reasonably low scale, I mean less than 100,000 people. But it'll be there. It'll be there. And all those countries, you know, with direct experience of colonial rule, which resulted in a great deal of angst, misery and depth, strangely, are not sitting with us in terms of our view about what should be done. And those colonial powers, like the US and others, like ourselves, are indeed doing so. And there's an element of sort of, it's not a good look, guys, which perhaps they need to take on board. But you can't expect that from the Labour right wing because they just no longer have any connections to that sorts of sensibility in the world whatsoever. Still, never mind, I'm sure at the end of it that there will be a reasonable solution and Tony Blair and various American billionaires will be very, very pleased with the outcome. Maybe we'll get some interesting seaside-fronted properties which we can then go on holiday in. Just hope that they've cleared things up by then. Have a lovely day, if you can do. Enjoy the beginning of the week, and I don't know. Oh, it's in that kind of slide to Christmas now, isn't it? Enjoy.